Crimson Desert recently dropped a new gameplay overview, and to be honest, this might be the first time the game actually makes sense. Up until now, the game was all combat and chaos, boss fights, dragons, all-out wars, and huge action set pieces. Now yes, it all looks super cool and badass, but it also got kinda exhausting just seeing non-stop action all the time. And I'm sure it's not just me, but a lot of people have been wondering, well, all this looks cool and all, but what are you doing when you're not fighting enemies? What is the premise of this game? Why does Cliff fight literally anything that moves? Well, those questions have finally been answered. A few days back, around 21st of January, the game went gold, which means the content is now complete. Now, this is the first time, well, not really the first time, but probably the second time the team has focused more on the narrative and what the game actually is. In this latest gameplay overview, they talk about the premise, the world building, the open world design, and the protagonist, which also came with a bit of a surprise, but more on that in a bit. Let's first talk about the world itself, because this is probably the most fascinating part of the game. The game takes place on the fictional continent of Pywel. It's a seamless open world consisting of 5 major regions. There's Hernan, which is the starting point of the game, Pyel, the homeland of the Greymanes, then there's Demnis, the titular region, the Crimson Desert itself, and finally one of the more interesting regions, Delcia, which is the forefront of science and technology and gives off this really fantasy steampunk vibe, and I'm all for it. And that's not all, because on top of all this, there's this mysterious realm also known as the Abyss. The map also features a wide variety of biomes, such as snowy mountains, swamps, forests, floating islands, and of course, deserts. And since an entire region is literally called Crimson Desert, something tells me that area is gonna be huge and full of mysteries. The map itself is ginormous, and according to the devs, it's roughly twice the size of RDR2. That puts it at around 160 square kilometers, which for my American audience equals to an area that could be covered by about 20 billion hamburgers. Now, when I first heard this, I was kinda skeptical because a bigger map doesn't necessarily mean a good map. And this is a common problem with many open world games of this scale and size. Just Cause 3 is a very good example of that. The open world was huge, the locations were beautiful, but there was literally nothing to do other than flying around or blowing stuff up. Then there's Assassin's Creed Origins, the last Assassin's Creed game that I actually completed. Now the game itself was pretty decent, but the open world was nothing more than a big beautiful checklist. Almost every activity in the open world boiled down to combat. Clear a camp, assassinate a target, free some prisoners, rescue someone, and repeat. Even the random encounters are nothing more than saving lifeless NPCs from animal attacks. I mean, you get the idea. It all got repetitive and boring, and once I was done with the story, I never played the game again. So this was one of my biggest concerns for Crimson Desert as well, because all they kept showing was combat, and it made me worry that the entire game would just be fighting hordes of enemies over and over and over again. But in this new gameplay overview, they showed some of the more quieter, more laid-back moments in the game, like this random encounter where you help an NPC drive a wagon into town, or this one where you save Jimmy Brooks. The game also features some Reddit-style NPC interactions where you can either greet or even threaten people. You can also observe NPCs and actually learn from them. For example, you can watch someone and learn how to fish, if only it were that easy in real life. The point is, these are simple things, but they make all the difference. They make the world feel alive and lived in. Now on top of all that, the devs have put some special focus on the world design.
In Pywel, exploration is more than travel. It's discovery.
The open world contains many points of interest, and it's being designed to reward exploration. There are caves and ancient ruins and all these weird places where you can either find hidden treasures or maps that lead to those hidden treasures. You can also come across ancient mechanisms scattered throughout the world that function as environmental puzzles. And that's not just limited to the continent either. The Abyss takes things even further with massive floating structures that you'll likely have to align or manipulate in some way for some weird magical shit to happen. Now, I'm not really sure how tough they're gonna be, but man, they look cool and kinda remind me of the Prince of Persia Sands of Time trilogy, which is now dead all thanks to Ubisoft. But anyways, now let's talk about one of the most unique aspects of the game, the Abyss itself. It's a mysterious realm, and it's not just a visually impressive backdrop with floating islands, but plays an important role in the story as well. From what they've shown so far, many of the quests seem to be related to the Abyss. Like for example, in this one scene, this mage woman gives Cliff the magical gliding cape thingy before he jumps off of a floating island. Then there are these collectible Abyss fragments, other powerful artifacts that are required for leveling up, as well as some of the Abyss related points that can act as fast travel locations. What I really like is how the fast traveling mechanic is tied directly to the Abyss, and since it has all these portals, it actually makes sense within this world. And to be honest, it just feels much more logical than randomly teleporting to the top of a goddamn tower for no reason, which is just stupid, but anyways. Now, while the main story revolves around the Greymanes trying to survive and reclaim their homeland from the enemy, the overarching plot raises the stakes with dark forces trying to get their hands on some shiny Abyss-related MacGuffin that holds immense power. And I'm calling it now, the ending will feature some sort of skybeam. Now to me, the story seems to be the weakest aspect of the game. I think it'll be serviceable at best, but I don't expect it to have a deep and layered narrative. And yes, you can argue that in a system-heavy game like this one, the story doesn't really matter that much, and I'm sure a lot of people are excited for this game because of the world building, the dragon riding, and all the cool different mechanics, but in my opinion, the story does kind of matter, and I just hope it's good enough to make me care and keep me invested all the way through. And who knows, maybe the story ends up being great, and it'd be a nice little cherry on top of everything else, but anyways. One thing's for sure, the story seems to be huge, and that's probably why the game needs 3 playable characters. You primarily play as Cliff, but later on 2 more characters become playable as the story unfolds, and there might be some sort of GTA 5 style character switching mechanic as well, but only time will tell. Personally, I think they should have kept the 3 playable characters a secret because discovering it later on in the game would have blown people's minds, but anyways. Now each character has their own unique abilities, weapons, and playstyles. Like for example, this woman can use a flintlock pistol, and this other character wields this powerful hand cannon or whatever it's called. And based on that, I think certain areas or missions can only be accessed with specific characters. Like for example, Cliff might be the only one with the traversal skills or magic abilities required for the missions tied to the Abyss. But hey, I'm just speculating, so take it all with a grain of salt. Either way, it sounds really damn cool and mad. March couldn't come anytime sooner. In the meantime though, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. Thank you. Now they also talk about the quest structure in this game. The main quest line follows Cliff's journey through the central story, but there are a ton of side quests, challenges, and different activities. And from how they're framing it, it seems like many of these side quests might somehow tie into the main storyline as well, especially some of the bigger quests like large-scale battles and boss fights and all that. Many of the side quests revolve around the numerous factions, houses, and organizations of Pywel. Some of the factions are friendly and will give you missions in exchange for resources, others are hostile and might be occupying certain areas and blocking access to key locations. Now this isn't anything new, it's a textbook example of clearing camps by fighting hordes of enemies to unlock new areas. What I found interesting though is that the enemies don't just occupy settlements, instead they lay siege and blockade them. Once you defeat the invading forces, the blockade will be lifted and people will return to the settlement, unlocking new side content. You can also access merchants that can offer better armor, weapons, and even raw materials like lumber or stone, things you'll need to rebuild a Greymaid's home. They also show the campsite where the Greymaids are holed up, and it looks like you'll be able to upgrade and expand it over time. Probably something similar to the Assassin's Creed Valhalla settlement system, but I never played that dogshit game, so if I'm getting anything wrong, feel free to educate me in the comments down below. The point is, the faction missions are basically essential for character progression as well as rebuilding your settlement. My only concern here though is forced grinding. I really hope the faction missions are meaningfully tied into the main story, because if they are interesting and relevant, that's great. However, if the game forces you to do boring, disconnected side content just to unlock the next story mission, that could become a problem, but I do hope they handle it in a good way. With all that said, Crimson Desert is shaping up to be one of the biggest games of this year, if not all time. But with that scale and size comes another concern, and that is the performance, especially how the game will run on consoles. Now for a game this big, I don't mind it running at just 30 FPS. I played games like The Witcher 3 and RDR2 on the base PS4 running at 30 FPS and it never really bothered me. What did bother me though were the frame rate drops. While RDR2 ran just fine for the most part, there were some noticeable frame rate drops, especially in areas like Saint Denis. And just like RDR2, this is also a very system-heavy game, and I fully expect some performance dips here and there, but as long as it's not something disastrous, I'm okay with it. Now, Pyel built a proprietary engine specifically for this game, designed and fine-tuned for huge draw distances and massive battles with hundreds of NPCs on screen. Paired with the fact that the game went gold well before the release date, it means that devs have a lot of time for polishing the game to perfection. This gives me some confidence that they might be able to optimize it well. That being said, this is still their first massive single-player project, so I'm staying cautiously optimistic. I just really hope that this doesn't turn into another Cyberpunk situation, because that would absolutely suck ass. But anyways, I'll leave you at that. Do share your thoughts about Crimson Desert in the comments down below. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.